what have you found most challenging about also dealing with these incredibly wealthy people? Is it like high stakes? What do you kind of think about that?
I'll say this. I've tried to bring on a lot of my teammates and my colleagues to meet with these folks because I realize that I'm just one person and there's inherently limitations. There's only so much time in the day. It's this concept called scale, right? One person can only do so much. So you need to be able to teach, coach, empower other people to be able to do this. And then you can scale, right? 2 people can do more than one. 5 people can do more than one. 10 people can do more than one. And then you've got this multiplier effect happening. And turns out those people could very well be smarter and be more effective and do a better job. Greater benefits, right? Scale, it's a bigger enterprise, a bigger business, a bigger profit center. So that's been a big focus of mine, trying to develop that. And what I found is, sure, people can be proficient technically and know the right answers and know their job, right? Like that's table stakes. Some people better than others, but people can be effective at it. I've found though that the biggest challenge for a lot of folks is being comfortable with themselves around these people, whether they're celebrities or not. Meeting a billionaire and knowing that their best friends are playing in the NBA finals and they're just with them. You've got the opportunity to work with them if you do good with this person because they want to introduce you to. You're in New York and they point out, they say, oh yeah, my family owns this skyscraper next door and that's why we office here because we own this building too. A lot of people can be intimidated or they feel inadequate, right? Or uncomfortable around them. And that creates all sorts of weird things in individuals. They may not be able to communicate very well in the moment. They're so self-conscious, they may second guess themselves on things. And then they may also create a little bit of awkwardness in developing that relationship. And so I've found that the biggest challenge is as you're trying to bring people in, and although I might be comfortable because I don't have the lack of self-doubt or whatever comment you'd made earlier, I might be comfortable, but trying to bring in other people, even folks that are older than me, right, that have more experience, but people just sometimes get a little bit in their head, and I think that's a big challenge for folks, especially with these folks that can be very intimidating.
So do you feel that the people that do best in that position are the people who are able to rise to the occasion almost? And like I kind of said earlier, not have that self-doubt.
Yes, belief in self, rising to the occasion, knowing that you matter, you've got value, you're intelligent, your opinions are worth being heard. That's important.
Okay. And what is your approach to developing a team?
Yeah, I'm a bit more of a flexible, I would say, with regard to working and managing people. I try to create a lot of opportunity for people as they grow and develop. I try to find more ways to challenge them, and I try to put people in positions where they can mess up and there's consequences. Now, people that are just starting, they can make little mistakes, but they might have a very simple task that if they mess up could be a big mistake, but it's a very simple task, right? It might be put this number in this field to transfer this money to this entity. All right. If you key in wrong numbers and you send it to yourself, okay, you're going to jail, right? You stole. It's a very simple task, right, of doing a transfer. Very
Mhm.
simple task, low complexity, but high stakes, right? And then for people that are more senior and more experienced, I have them work on and run transactions and things that they mess up. It could look bad and it could negatively impact their career.
Mhm.
And I think that we all people say, and by the way, that kind of tends to attract people that want to be responsible, that want to do something that matters. So I try to create opportunities for people to do work that matters. Although it may not be, if you're just starting off, it's simple, but it matters, right? It's
Mhm.
an important job. And as you get more senior, you just do more stuff that might be more complex, but it matters. And there's little things that people have to do that are like less important, but I really try to emphasize that on every role that people are in, they do stuff that matters and it has consequences. They mess up. Um, what I found is doing this type of thing for people that are up for that challenge. It helps engagement. Like people realize what they do is something important. People realize they're contributing to the team. And there is I don't know if it's like an instinctual thing in humans, but doing something where people rely on you and you've got responsibilities and you can then have some pride in what your contributions are and feel good like you've done something, that's a good thing.
Yeah.
So that's kind of the approach I take. And what ends up happening is all the folks that I've worked with, they kind of take a little bit of a different path because some might want to focus a little bit on this, some may want to focus a little bit on that. But it's my job, I feel, as a composer to ensure that the right people are doing the right things. If this person wants to do a little bit more of this thing, okay, then we need to make sure we've got other supporting people that can do some of that, that can pick up. And if we can't, they're going to have to keep doing that until we can find people that want to do more of those things. It's about giving people responsibility than trying to optimize folks' natural inherent talents and abilities. Look, people will still have to do stuff that they don't necessarily may not be their favorite, but
Mhm.
I try as best I can to give people opportunities to do things where they naturally just want to do or they're naturally um, interested in.
Mhm. In your role, so do you mainly manage the people, or do you kind of work in those deals where you're like doing a lot of the money transactions and whatnot, or are you mainly just managing and leading?
Yeah, so for me, it's a lot of my job is managing and leading. However, I do spend a fair amount of time. Uh, I do spend a fair amount of time working with clients. I keep a few clients because I want to keep my skills sharp and I want to stay engaged. But majority of my time is managing, overseeing the business, and I've got like a handful of clients. But if it's a really big transaction that matters to the firm, uh, that's really important, or something that's really complicated, or something that's like high risk, like we're working on some things now that have to go to probably our CEO because of high risk factors in the transaction. Like those are things I involve myself with because I want to make sure that I own that for the team. I view that ultimately that's my responsibility. If something really bad happens there.
Mm. What's been the biggest deal that you worked on?
um, the biggest deal that I've worked on. Let's see. The biggest deal was there's this transaction that we did uh, that was helping finance a uh, significant interest in the world's largest uh, native Latin American media company. So it was like a $25 billion value business. And we were helping finance an interest in buying a stake in that business and buying that from, at the time, and still is one of the largest private equity firms in the world. And that was something that it was the largest transaction of its nature that BMO had ever looked at. It's an transaction that I had sourced, and it had to go to our CEO in Canada to look at the deal.
And were you leading people during that time? How were you able to rise to the stakes of that?
Yeah, I was leading people. I had a smaller team. Now my team is like 30 or so, but back then it was just 9. And I just believed in myself. And I had been working for, when was that? It was like 2 years ago. So I've been at BMO for almost 14 years, and so I had some good, decent experience. I mean, I had done probably other deals that were larger in like notional amount of the loan, but this one was like the highest stakes and the most impactful transaction. So it technically wasn't the largest dollar amount, but it involved the biggest company I'd worked with as an individual company, and went up to the highest level, of leadership at BMO. And again, I just believed. I felt pretty confident about it. I've been working for about 14 years at the time, so figured I knew what I knew.
Yeah. Okay. And then can you share any examples of, your work and how it's made a positive difference with some of your clients that you've worked with?
Yeah, for sure. There's a lot of things I've done over the years that I think have been helpful. There have been some clients where it was maybe impacted 1 or 2 people, but folks sometimes they may come into money, somebody may pass away, right? Or they may gain funds, but they're not very sophisticated yet. And how do they manage that? And the concern of whether or not they're going to have enough to kind of pay for all their bills and their expenses and things like that, right? Like going forward in the future. So I did a lot of that kind of stuff when I was, younger, more junior in my career, learning those kind of fundamentals of like the financial stuff. But the other things I've done is sometimes people have these dreams, dreams of having, a second home on the water or something like that. Whatever, like big aspirations that people might have one day, and helping those type of things come true for people. And the people are very happy, for that when we're able to help folks out. Other things have been, helping people, save their business. They're in a weird spot where, revenue might be down, things might be tight a little bit, and they've got this situation where, hey, they could lose their company if we don't come in and help them and provide them a little bit of capital. So there's been a lot of those things. That saves jobs. It saves people's businesses that they spent, their life building. And those have been things that that are great to do. So certainly saved a lot of jobs, certainly helped a lot of people make their dreams come true, and help people just over the years feel comfortable and understand, hey, am I going to have enough to retire on, and am I going to be okay? So there's a lot of good things in various levels and scales, right? Just different levels of impact depending on the size of the wealth of people. But yeah, I have that opportunity. I've done a lot of things to help people out over the years.
Got it. And we talked about some of your wealth management stuff, but I also wanted to talk about the private equity aspect of your career. Can you just talk to me about what that's been like and really what private equity is?
Sure. So, I always use a simple analogy to describe private equity. For those that I think most people have seen these house flipping shows.
Mhm.
Buy a house for $100,000. You put 50,000 into it. You sell it for $250,000. You made $100,000. Holy cow! Like, this is so great. Let's go do it again and again and again. House flipping. Private equity is effectively that for businesses. You buy a business for, instead of 100,000, 100 million. You're going to borrow money from banks or other groups to buy that. So you don't put in all 100 million, but you're financing it. So you put in $20, $30 million of capital from your investors, wherever. You then invest money in the business. You add on to it, just like you would do an extension onto a house. You make the business better. You hire a new management team. Well, it's like putting a new kitchen in a house. You're doing things to make it more valuable.
Mhm.
You increase the revenue, of the business. Well, you added more square footage to the house. You finish the basement, right? So you've got more livable space. I'm in my basement now. So you do all those things, and then you go to sell it. So the business is larger. It's got more revenue. It's more profitable. It's got a better management team. Like the house, it's got a new kitchen. It's got a finished basement. It's been painted. The landscaping is done. You did an extension onto the house. More value is created. You said you bought it for 100 million. You put in 50 million bucks or whatever you needed to deliver the value and grow the business. You then sell it for $500 million. You make a lot of money for you and for your investors. Most private equity investors are really pension funds, endowment funds. These are things where folks need that money for retirement. These endowment funds where they're helping the schools, these large universities, pay for their faculty, their buildings, and their staff. And then high net worth individuals that want to grow their wealth. That's what these people are, largely working for.
Mhm.
So that's in a nutshell, very simple, what private equity is. My career at BMO has largely been working around and working with those individuals. So oftentimes it's providing capital to them in some way, shape, or form to help them acquire these companies and businesses. In the wealth management space, we spend time helping these people save money on taxes. Um, I don't know, you may or may not have to do taxes yet, Sam, but one day you will. And when you do, it's great to be able to contribute to the country and support all the great things that America does. But you'll find that there are a lot of things that you could do that save money in taxes. Uh, Buying a house, uh, investing in your retirement fund, all these things you can do to save money in taxes. And so we oftentimes spend a lot of time helping our clients with that. We're private equity people, and then a lot of other unique structured things that we can do for them.
Mhm. And for private equity, where does one gain like all the expertise that's required to renovate every single part of a business? It seems so thorough and intricate, and I'm just wondering how you could get to all those parts.
They use help. It's a team sport. So they
Mhm.
hire consultants. They've got accountants helping them out, special insurance advisors that help them. Okay, we're going into this. And for a house, you got to get insurance on a house. You'd have to have insurance for a car. Same thing for a business, but they're much bigger policies and much more expensive. So having somebody just invest time and find out how can we save money on those. You want to grow your revenue. Okay. Do you ask a consultant to help you or someone hire a new marketing person, right, to do that? When you bring on a new leadership team, right, a new CEO, a new C-suite to help drive all these things, right? That's like just building a house. It's like you could be a general contractor. You don't have to do everything, but you got to hire the right people and make it a team sport so that all these contractors, all these folks working on this team can deliver, the value and then do it actually with pace. Because you don't want to do this for 20, 30 years. You want to get in there, make the business better, and then turn it within a reasonable period of time, meaning sell it in a reasonable period of time.
Hmm. And what does the timeline kind of look like for private equity deals? Is it how many years?
It ranges. I would say nowadays it's closer to a 5, 6, or 7 years for a hold to have an investment. Back in the day, it used to be a shorter period of time, but that 5, 6, 7 is generally where we're seeing things today. Part of that's a function of you may have heard interest rates,
Mhm.
are high, so the cost to borrow is harder, so it creates less buyers in the market. Same with houses. Housing sales have slowed down. It's hard for people to afford to buy a house now because interest rates are higher. They go to borrow money and they have to pay a lot more. Same way with businesses. You go to borrow money to buy a business, you have to pay a lot more. So that's kind of caused things to be prolonged.
Hmm.
You also have a dynamic where people who own the business think it's worth a lot more than maybe someone willing to buy it thinks it is, similar to a house. I think my house is worth a lot of money because I have lived in it for a long time. But someone coming to buy it says, I don't think it's worth that much money. I'm not going to buy it for that price. I need to wait for that price to fall down.
Got it.
You've got those same dynamics that exist in the private equity space.
Okay. And for a private equity firm, just for example, do they have a lot of those like accountants, consultants, people? Do they have those in house already accessible?
Not normally. People may have a couple consultant like people. They'll hire people who may have been former CEOs of businesses and keep them on the retainer per se to be able to drop in to help them out with companies when they need them. But more often, folks are excuse me, folks are hiring those folks at firms, consulting firms or accounting firms, to go and work in the businesses.
Okay. And then lastly, what advice would you have for people who want to get in, or high schoolers who want to either get into wealth management or private equity or just finance in general?
Yeah. uh, Unfortunately, and maybe this changes in the future with AI and who knows what could happen, but unfortunately, college is pretty important to get into. I'll just call it finance in general. And it's not just any college, though. Finance roles tend to focus on certain schools that have really good business programs. And so folks, they're in high school that want to go into the space. I think it's important that people try to get into um, the best school that has a business program, so the best business program they can. That's really important. And so then that's a function of having good grades and all those things. And then when you're in college as well, having good grades. But I would encourage people to also have good relationships with their career placement department at their university and to join some of the business clubs, have some of those extracurricular type things, because that allows you to learn about and stay posted when recruiters come from various consulting, accounting, banking firms, what have you. Private equity is starting to recruit a little bit out of college, but more common, like the vast majority of people work in consulting or investment banking for a few years and then go to private equity and then go to business school, might come back. So usually a couple years experience before going into private equity is how most people get in. So again, go to a good college with a good business program. When you're in there, obviously got to be focused on grades. That's important. But I would say close relationships with the career department, as well as if there's business clubs and the like, because then that'll keep you in the know when recruiters come. So you can start to build relationships with those bank recruiters from whether it be BMO or any other large bank that has a commercial and investment bank or wealth management arm.
Got it. Okay, so yeah, go to a good college, extracurriculars, grades obviously. Okay.
Yeah.
Just
Yeah, I mean it's kind of I think that's kind of basic stuff. So I don't think that's any of that stuff is like earth shattering.
Mhm.
But once people are doing all those things, then I think the real differentiator is going to come to folks being persistent and dedicated. These roles are very competitive. Folks can have really wonderful lifestyles and earnings and create significant wealth for them and their families by these jobs, let alone the ability to learn entrepreneurial skills in these type of roles and jobs. So they're very competitive. So it's that removal of self doubt, uh, uh, determination, persistence. Those are the things that really differentiate. Because there are a lot of people that are going to go to business schools, And there are a lot of people that have relationships with the professional placement, development departments, whatever they might be called. But it's persistence and it's the determination that'll really differentiate people.
Make sure to like and subscribe, hit the notification bell. If you ever want to contact me about anything regarding the channel, you can contact me at themaggieWalkerProject@gmail.com. It'll also be linked in the description. So with that, I'll see you in the next video. Thank you.